Today's December 19th. As the field at PNC Park is lit up with Christmas lights, we are less than 1 week from a Christmas Eve transaction. But right on time for a Christmas Eve transaction joke. You're listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Yins guys, thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. My name is Josh, and I'm joined again by my brother Jake. What's up, Jake?
How's it going, man? Feels good to be back.
Where you been?
Listen, Christmas time, work.
Christmas parties.
And tonight we're a little bit late because I had to, military friends. Sometimes you got to say goodbye to them for a year.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it worked out anyway.
Yeah.
We had a Christmas thing to go to. They gave a little extra time, a little buffer time, make sure that I'm not trying to rush out of there and do all that stuff. So, Boylan's Vanilla Cream. Showed that off for the video, but those listeners there, Boylan's Vanilla Cream. Again.
Nestle Pure Life.
Nestle Pure Life, probably a smarter decision than a Boylan's Vanilla Cream. So, kudos to you for being a little bit smarter than me tonight. A little bit turn. There we go. Hey, this is what we got Sunday before Christmas, and that's it.
Yeah.
So Sunday, we'll try to come up with some Christmas themed things for Sunday and have a little fun with it. Unless, of course, they actually go out and sign Max. We're going to talk a little bit about the outfield and about Pitt City What's already on it. How you doing? Bucko Mike's already in here too. If you're in the chat here live with us, let us know you're here. Say what's up. And then if you want to lurk after that, go ahead. Lurk all you want. But we appreciate you guys in here and appreciate everybody listening. As always, hit that subscribe button. We've got a few things to talk about. Some ouchies, some bummers, some,
I'm bummed out. Yeah.
Jake, tomorrow is
Friday.
And Max Kepler's already gone. So we're going to talk a little bit about that kind of stuff. There's a few signings that look like they're happening. I'm refreshing my browser right now to see if there's an update on one of them. There is not. So we'll see. But let's go ahead and get started, Jake, because we've got some stuff to talk about, and it's already 9:35. And usually when I see that time, I was like, we got to move it along. But we're just getting started here. So Steel City DW, how you doing? Jake, let's go ahead and talk about Max Kepler. Max Kepler signed 1 year, $10 million with the Phillies. That's a doable contract, Jake.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
that's a doable contract.
It's a doable contract and a pretty decent player.
Yeah, and so when you were gone, we talked a lot about this. We talked a lot about right field, and I made a case on Sunday that, like, hey, this could be a good thing if we get if we get two players for right field and do a platoon, like, that's okay. You could still get one, like, a solid position by doing it. And Max Kepler was around that conversation. A lot of people in the chat suggesting that was kind of, the guy that they were looking for, and pairing him with Bucko Mike coming in. I don't know the sources. This is Bucko Mike talking with Randall Grichuk. And if that's the case, then that would have been nice, and so now 1 year, 10 million feels, I don't see anything saying, oh, we'll have to check the Fangraphs. We tried what was it? Tracker. We tried tracker, right?
Yeah.
Sherrod, how you doing? Awaiting the Christmas miracle. Well, yeah. Yeah. But this is all part of the thing. This is all part of the deal. And well, we'll get into the other one because I want to stay outfield. You're running out of options out there, Jake.
You are. There's still a pretty good one out there. I think Jerks and Profar is out. I don't think he's out of our reach. I did
Mm.
see that he's seeking like a 3-year deal, but man, I feel like he could run around our left field. You move Reynolds to right. To me, that seems like a pretty good fit. And I think
Yeah,
I think
that's
he's at that point in his career too where he's kind of figured it out.
so that's the question. And I wouldn't have really gone there. I think it's going to take I think he thinks it is there too, and he thinks he's figured it out too. Coming from what was going on in San Diego, he feels like he's a big part of that. I would venture to say it is going to take some coin. I would also venture to say that the Pirates should still entertain that
Mhm.
because that is an everyday player. I'm not going to hold my breath for that because I think it will
No.
take money. There is no qualifying offer that's there. So if you need to go 20 million on a 3-year deal, 20, 21, 22 million, are you doing that? And do you
I
think that
mean,
that's what it is? Bucko Mike says 3 for 45 to 55.
okay, that's doable.
That's
It's very doable
that's
for a
less than
team who just
20.
yeah.
Even the
That's
55
definitely
million is just over 18 million a year.
yeah. I I think he's in that. I think we're in that ballpark right now. For a guy who's probably going to hit you around 280 with 20 plus home runs and be able to steal
Are
bags
we
and
there?
what he did last year, man. He hit 280 last year.
20 plus homers and stealing
Hit
bags?
24.
He stole 10 bases. But that's the first year since like the juiced ball 2019 that he's gotten 20 over the wall. But you're right. I mean, when he's there and he's around it, I mean, it's there. He had 380 on base. Let's just talk that, right? 380 on base last year in
Mhm.
158 games. 380, 134 OPS plus. And he's going into his age 32 season, which means there's still something left in the tank. You could do a 3-year deal. That's a high price, but it would lock up the outfield for the next 3 years. And being a switch hitter, I don't know what his splits are. I haven't really thought much about this. I'm interested. I don't know that they're going to go there. I don't know that they're going to go to 18 million. Does he? Because the thing is does he require a platoon? Because I'm sitting here saying go 10 and 8. What's the difference?
Right.
I'm going to look them up while you say whatever else you want to say about him.
Oh, that's kind of what I was doing. So last year versus righties versus lefties, we got a 378 on base against righties, 385 on base against lefties.
That's right there, Jake. League OPS plus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not going to walk. I mean, this guy's hitting because he's swinging, huh? But 380 on base, how's he only walking 76 times if he's at 380 on? Like that doesn't compute for me. 132 OPS plus against righties, a 149 against lefties. Now he's better against lefties, a 110 for the personal OPS plus. So like for him, for his normal, he's a 110 and a 96. 96 is against righties. So he's a little bit better against lefties, but that doesn't mean he's a slouch. Like he's still good. I don't know. It's really interesting. Yeah. I just don't know if. Okay, so let's also say this. Cade 101 times is not a lot.
No.
Like that's really good. Anytime you're in the like 100, like you're doing it.
Yeah.
For me, right? That's low strikeouts. It's also low walks. I get that. 76 is not a lot of walks. You'd want those to be a little closer together. But I don't know, man.
Yeah. Somebody asked me at church one day. He's like, "Well, what are the Pirates doing anything this winter?" I said, "Yeah, we're sitting on our hands and watching this division get better."
Bucko Mike, 321 with runners in scoring position, a 939 OPS with runners in scoring position. No, I mean, like, you guys are really selling me on this. This is a guy that, this is a difference maker. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
I would have put him under like okay, we've got a good platoon. We can actually make this work kind of guy. Like, if you get him, it's like, all right, solid. But no, I mean, if he can repeat that, 277 runners in scoring position with 2 outs. I'm buying. The problem is I don't know if somebody else is.
Dang it, Bobby.
He spent most of the time, and this is in the San Diego batting order. He spent most of his time batting second and third.
And third.
102 games started batting either second or third. And he spent 19 games in the leadoff spot, 6 games batting fourth, 19 batting fifth, 12 batting sixth.
51 I'm seeing 51 games started.
Yeah.
In second and third. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, that's 102 total.
Oh, I got you. Okay. 51 each though, which I thought is really interesting. And he's actually better out of the 3-hole. He's actually a lot better. A lot better.
Perfect for us.
He had 216 from the 2-hole and 304 from the 3-hole. Now, granted, he has.
Hey, don't batted 380 from the leadoff spot.
Well, 19 games though.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Much smaller, but it is monster. The monster numbers from the leadoff spot without the walks and maybe not seeing a lot of pitches. I don't know, right?
Well, so 19 games at the leadoff spot, he had 9 walks.
That's a good point. So he's accepting the role when he's there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 9 walks and 7 strikeouts. So it does look like it changes a little bit. Steel City DW says that Austin Hayes, asking if Austin Hayes is still available. He is. The only reason I haven't really thought much about Austin Hayes is he would be that platoon type guy for one. He would be a guy it's either him or Randall Grichuk pairing with like a Max Kepler or Jock Peterson, something like that. Like that would be like, if you got those guys, you'd say, all right, I'm going with this. The problem is that now you weren't, if it ends up, because Kepler's gone, if it ends up being Peterson and Hayes, it's like, well, Hayes can play left, but Peterson, we don't even know if he can play right field. You know what I'm saying? Like you've got those kind of questions. The bat's good, but a buddy of mine is a Phillies fan and just kind of felt that Austin Hayes was his Brian De La Cruz. So that's why I haven't really talked much about Austin Hayes, is because I don't want Brian De La Cruz. So that's the way he felt about him. Now maybe it was a little bit better than that, and he was just expecting more. I don't really know, but that's the only reason. I'm not justifying what I'm saying. I'm just saying that's why I haven't gone there, because I've heard him complain so much about Austin Hayes and how worthless he was. So it just hasn't been a thing. So, and maybe this is it. Bad with runners in scoring position, as Bucko Mike says, that's been one half of his problems. But yeah, I'm in on Jerks and Profar. Like I said, I just don't know if the Pirates are going to be. If that's your Christmas miracle, Sherrod, are you happy with that? You know what I mean? I don't know. So there are some, some things here that are in play no matter which way you look at it. And Pit City, I'm not picking on you here, but you've put a comment in here saying, why even own a team? We're not going to spend anything. And then we're also, Ben is frustrating, get what you need ASAP, quit bargain shopping. I mean, they kind of go hand in hand, right? I mean, like if Bob's not letting him spend, if that's the truth, then Ben has no choice but to do what he's doing.
Yeah.
And, if if Ben is doing that and he's at fault there, then that means that Bob's allowing him to spend more. So it's kind of like a yin and a yang there, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Is that, you have to kind of, one of them is true. The other one is coincidental. I guess if it's one way, the other one is probable if it's the other way. So, I don't know. It's interesting. There's a lot of strategy that goes along with somebody who is not given a big payroll or a big budget to put into the payroll.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is we know that this team is going to be close to or above $100 million. Like, we've already known that. We've been talking about that. It's been kind of out there. It's expected to go up. You take them at their word and you hold them accountable to it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting here saying, like, they're going to spend the money. I don't know how, but they're going to spend the money. And so if they don't, then I react to that. But we've talked about this a couple different times. It's the same with the A's, which, by the way, I should clarify, because Ethan put out a tweet today saying that he's heard this a few times, and I've said it. And so I know that I'm guilty of saying this about the A's spending money because they have to, because of that whole 150% of the shared revenue, or else you lose the shared revenue. That's kind of like, that's me jumping to conclusions because I don't want to talk about the A's. I want to talk about the Pirates. But the process is, and Ethan wanted to clear this up, the process is if you don't spend 150% of the shared revenue, a grievance will be filed. If that grievance goes through, you will lose revenue sharing. Okay, so it's an eventual, it's a risk that you're taking by not spending the money. And so Pirates are on that thing just the same. You don't want a grievance. You're going to push to be on that 150%. You have to prove it. You just don't want that, right? You don't want that to happen. So I think it's the same, but it is worth clarifying because I've said that. And, I'm, like I said, I'm more or less jumping to this is what could happen and is probable. But, it's one of those things. Steel City DW says, I'm going to be so mad if Verdugo becomes a Pirate. Yeah. I mean, I don't hate Verdugo. I think he's, not a good fit for this team. But if he's a platoon player, like, I don't know what his numbers were against righties, but like, if he's a platoon player and he actually does hit righties well, then that's a guy that maybe it's not so bad if you can pair him with someone like a Randall Grichuk against lefties or something like that. I don't think it's as bad as maybe, like, that's the problem is when we look at these and we say that's not a needle mover, but is he a needle mover? And let me say Jock Peterson. Because a lot of people would say, I don't know if Jock Peterson's a needle mover, right? He can only hit right-handers. We don't know if he can play defense. But if you pair him with a Randall Grichuk, and I'm just using him as an example because we've already talked about him. Randall Grichuk is a plus defender. Late in the game, put Randall Grichuk out there if you have a lead. You know what I'm saying? And you cover the defense. But the bat of those two guys against righties and lefties would be that would be very good. You could probably get 25 homers with that pair. So it's just like it's two people, but it's like you added a 25 home runs in right field. So, I don't know.
Over his career, he's, we're talking about career numbers, not last year, but career is a 280, 334, 447 against righties.
Yeah. Verdugo's also a good defender, so you do get a plus defender out there. If he's paired with Randall Grichuk, you probably do move Brian Reynolds to right field, and the two of those can handle left field. He has been able to. He has been a pretty good defender from what I remember. But I don't know that that's their guy either. Like I said, I don't know that Verdugo's real interested in. He's kind of a. I don't know. I feel like he's kind of a big city guy, and maybe I've got it pinned all wrong, but it just feels that way, right? Feels like that's where he fits in. He's only played look at the teams he's been with, right? They're all big markets, so that doesn't mean anything. But that's me. Maybe I shouldn't have said any of that. Can we back it up, guys? Let's just pretend
mulligan.
I didn't say anything, but I'm taking a mulligan on that one because I don't want to assume. But I don't know. would we go after Jurickson Profar? It seems like yes. Now, I've been in on this train for 15 minutes, guys. So, but you bring it up and it's a good point. And every, the stats that are coming through in the chat and what we've looked up here seems like a good fit. I don't know that he has to hit. I mean, if you've got Cruz hitting third and he bats leadoff, I mean, all you're doing is extending your lineup.
Yeah. Shoot, Pat Cruz lead off and Pat Profar third.
You have the ability to do that. Maybe against lefties, you don't. You switch it up a little bit, but you're starting to get, you're still not getting a 4-hitter though. The problem is like right now, Joey Bart's your 4-hitter.
Him or Kutch.
Or Kutch.
Right now.
You're right.
Right now, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I think we can assume Kutch, right? Maybe that's the Christmas Eve signing. I don't know. But it is interesting. And there's a lot in play, but like every time we come on here, Jake, we're going to say, well, there was an option that's gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's hold on, because Sherrod put this in here right before I go to the next thing. Sherrod puts this in here. Ben knows this is the last chance to build a winning team. The bargain shopping can only take you so far. He is allowed to make deals that are not former employees. That's that's true, right? Ben feels like a guy who's willing to trust the process. And I just, there's two thoughts, and we talked about this early in the offseason, and it's probably been a while since we talked about it. If you have one more year, like we all assume he does, and you want to call it a quote unquote prove it year, which is what we were calling it. Sherrod just says last chance, but let's say prove it year. Then you're either going to go out and do something crazy to get it, to keep your job, or you're going to actually prove it by saying, if I stay the course, I believe what we done will work. And I'm going to stand by it. I mean, that's the whole reason he keeps Shelton around, if that's the thought process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is I'm going to prove it by not doing anything different than I would do with the money given to me and that's allotted to me. I'm going to go out and be quote unquote smarter than you, as we all, are critical of. So I don't know, man. I feel like this is, the Horwitz, Alex here says a guy that was talked about at the deadline last year that maybe isn't an option with Horwitz is Yandy Diaz. So this is another guy that, a lot of people have talked about, but Yandy Diaz probably off the table now because of Horwitz. And I think that they've liked Horwitz for a long time. And I think that's,
what's his name had a lot to do with that. Why can't I think of his name?
Matt Haig. But the problem is that they've said that Ben's been trying to acquire him for the last 2.5 years. And they could never get eye to eye with Toronto, and they waited until he got traded to Cleveland to go get him. So it just feels like maybe, but also I don't know. I mean, maybe you do like that though, but it does sound coincidental because it does seem like this has been a long time target. And maybe that's, I think a lot of GMs are that way. They find somebody they like and they go after them and they just won't let off. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? They just keep going back and keep going back. I haven't talked a lot about Yandy Diaz either. And I think for me, it's mostly because I'm focused on getting better against right-handed pitching. And Yandy Diaz being a right-handed hitter, I always have wanted a lefty at first base. I've always wanted a left-handed hitter to play first base regardless. But Yandy Diaz is a better player than Horwitz is right now, for sure, without question. And so it's not that I would, it's not that I'd be against it, but then I would be bent out of shape saying, I'd be bent out of shape saying that you have to have a left-handed outfielder added. There's no question. Yeah. And, you had to get better against righties. You really did. You absolutely had to. So that's kind of the not public enemy. Focus number one. You know what I mean? Runners in scoring position, better against, you face more right-handed pitching. You have to be better against right-handed pitching.
Yeah.
You added Horwitz, but that's not power, Jake. We still need a
Right.
power bat, which is why I still like Jock Peterson. But I'm totally not against Jerks and Profar. That does sound good now that you guys are talking about it. But I don't know. I also think that there is a way and there is a path that somewhere along the line, this team will focus on pitching and will be a good team because they focus on pitching. I talk a lot about home runs and how we need home runs. And I don't know. There's more than one way to skin a cat. I'm going to be critical of it because that's the way I feel. I'll take the strikeouts if you can give me home runs. We need home runs. But, I mean, Cleveland still won the division for a few years without home runs. And they won it by bat-to-ball skills and by pitching. So, our division isn't much different than that division. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I just feel like I got to see it. I got to see it play out on the field. And we're going to talk baseball no matter what it is, right?
Yeah.
But I got to see it play out on the field, and I got to see what they can do with it. But in a vacuum, Jake, we say that a lot. In a vacuum, a lot of times we're saying in a vacuum, that's a good deal, right? But the Horwitz one, to me, in a vacuum is a bad deal. It's not a good trade. It's not a good acquisition. Let's avoid the who's going and who's coming. Just the guy coming in. It's not good in a vacuum. But as a whole, if you're able to add someone else, it could end up being really good for this team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where I'm at. But it all depends on what you get for your outfield mix. It depends on what you get out of guys like Henry Davis. And then the Spencer Horwitz, when we look at this in July, we might say, man, that was actually a really good trade.
Yeah.
But you got to get the outfielder. So speaking,
go
ahead.
Ideally with the lineup that you're talking about right now, that's Spencer Horwitz almost at his best batting seventh. You know what I mean?
You think seventh, sixth or seventh?
Yeah, but I'm saying you've upgraded the lineup that pushed him down to 6-7, even though he's hitting well.
So let's say it's Profar.
You know what I'm saying?
Let's say it's Profar, right? So let's say you put Profar at the leadoff spot. This is all coincidental. You could put Cruz there, flip those two. Maybe it's 3, whatever, right? And you've got Profar, Reynolds, Cruz. Then who's your next 3? Who's your 4, 5, 6? You go let's assume Kutch too.
Yeah.
Do you go Kutch, Bart?
Kutch, Bart, Gonzalez, or Kutch, Gonzalez, Bark? Or Bark? Bart?
Yeah, Bart. And then you got Horwitz. I'd probably throw Horwitz in there to split them up.
Yeah.
And then you got Hayes batting 8th and Davis batting 9th. If it's his job, right? If it's Endy.
Well.
Oh, wait a minute. What am I thinking? What's the position? Oh, you still got IKF in there. So yeah, Hayes is batting 9th. I'm goofed. Or if there's another shortstop that they end up, I don't know. So, you got the whole thing. That's actually not terrible.
Right.
It's not enough power though, unless you can get your 40 from Cruz.
Yeah.
And Joey Bart continues to be Joey Bart, and your backup catcher, whether it's Endy or Davis or both, and you get some pop from those guys. Let's say you get 20 from the catcher position combined, right? Nick Gonzalez takes a step up and hits 12. I don't know. And
Which
then
I think he's very capable of.
Yeah. And then, maybe at the deadline, you're adding somebody to replace IKF. I'm just saying, with this pitching staff, that lineup could play for a while. I'm not loving it. I'm not picking this team to win the division with that lineup. I wish there was more power.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You need more than just Cruz, and we're really assuming a lot for Cruz, Jake. We haven't seen it yet.
Right.
But we're assuming it's there.
Yeah.
And so, Cruz batting 1 or 3, and you've got Reynolds at 2, and then you have to fill in those other ones. Profar at least fills those 2 spots. We just looked it up. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a lot in the chat here. I haven't been looking at it. It's been flying in. You guys are awesome. So I'm going to take a look at a couple things here. Meanwhile, while I'm reading, I'll just say like and subscribe, all that stuff. Go ahead. You got something?
I like this one here. Everyone keeps saying outfield, but if Hayes is hurt, they're going to need a third base and a shortstop.
Yeah, it's a good point, Dave.
I think if Hayes gets hurt, you're still looking for a shortstop. You can slide IKF to third.
Or Triolo if he's playing well, or Nick York is in there with something like that. You got Peguero that could play second, and Gonzalez could play third.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if you see Gonzalez play a little bit of shortstop. Anything's on the table. I don't like shortstop. I don't like IKF at short every day.
I don't like our shortstop situation.
I just don't see them doing anything about it. He's making $7.5 million. He's going to play short at least for a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's say, even if they go out with a big splash and get Kim, he's probably not available right out of the gate. So IKF's at least going to be but
if you have him in the waiting, I don't care if IKF's our shortstop, because I know he's not our shortstop for the season.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, this actually kicked off this entire conversation. So you're right on, dude. You're right with us, and you missed some of this, but you didn't actually miss anything because you're right on with us that Max Kepler is gone to the Phillies. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot that you could work with that. It's just frustrating for us because you just want to see that. You want to see some urgency. You want to see aggressiveness, and we know what we've heard, that Ben Sherrington sees the winter meetings as the beginning of the offseason. You know what I'm saying? And it used to be that was where everything got hot and finished. And that's just not the case anymore. As much as we'd like to say that teams are going to be done building their teams by the new year, and then you can just talk about what it's going to be like for a month before they meet, that's just not the case. And I think a lot of GMs are starting to feel that way, that a lot of groundwork is being done there, but there's not a lot going there. So I don't know. Bucko Mike says Kutch, Reynolds, Profar, Bart, Horwitz, Gonzalez 1 through 6. Nah, not without Cruz.
Yeah, he fixed it.
Oh, yep. There you go. Cruz 4th. I think I could see Cruz 4th. I don't think they'll do it. I think he'll be 1 or 3. But with Kutch there, I mean, all you're doing is the only difference you have in your lineup versus ours is we put Kutch 4. So I could see that. And I could see Kutch being Kutch still sees a lot of pitches. He still is an effective leadoff hitter. Matter of fact, he was way better at leadoff last year than he was anything else. If he's there, you could see Profar hit 3 and Cruz 4, or the other way around. If we thought it was protection.
All of these options. You're going to see all these.
It's a good point. Derek Shelton's our manager. We'll see them all.
Granted, we got to sign Profar first, but
absolutely.
That's the biggest hurdle.
Yeah, we'll see Nick Gonzalez at the leadoff spot for some reason.
Yeah.
We'll see it all. You're right. That's a good point. Doug Smith says, with the hitting approach, is small ball better or is more power better? More power is better. And this is my opinion. I'll let Jake talk on it in a minute, but I'll say my piece and then let him go. But for me, homers in today's game. And the reason is because it's very hard to string together 5 consecutive hits or somewheres around that and scoring runs, because these pitchers don't allow you to do that. There's too much there. There's too much strikeout. There's too much, like, the pitchers are really good right now. And I just think it's just really hard to play small ball. It's hard. A guy's throwing 100. It's hard to bunt. Coming from a guy who used to bunt, to be fair, if anybody threw it north of 95 for me, I was like, I'm not swinging, I'm bunting because I'm not hitting that. I had a lefty. I hit left hand. I had a lefty throw right at my head. Right. And we have a picture of this. It was in Australia. Dad was behind there and snapped the picture with me bent back. Right. The ball's right here. And I remember that pitch coming in, and I don't know how hard that kid was throwing. We didn't have a gun there, but it felt hard, and he's a big dude. And I was like, screw this, dude. I'm not standing in there. I just laid down a bunt. I don't even remember if I beat it. I don't even remember if I was safe or not, but I was bunting. There's no way. No way. There you go. Steel City DW says we'll see Alika Williams leading off and no one else will understand why. Or no one will. Okay, so anyway, back to what I was saying is that's why I think homers are better. That's my opinion of like why homers are better than small ball. I think like stolen bases is still a thing, but like you're not going to see bunting. You're not going to see the two hitter have an unselfish at bat and ground out to second just to move a guy up because our two hitter's our best hitter. So you don't see those stereotypical things like we used to see. And I don't know. You go ahead.
No, I mean, you just said it all. I would love to sit here and say that I don't agree with you and you'll agree with me on this. We like small ball. We like that game of baseball.
We grew up watching the National League before the DH.
But today's game, you need power. You win with power.
And I'm going back to pitching is the reason why. It's just incredibly difficult to continue to put those runs on the board that way.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. A couple other things here, because we were talking about Gonzalez at shortstop. Bucko Mike says he had a positive defensive run saved at shortstop. I mean, there's a part of me that wouldn't mind that being the shortstop going into opening day, and I think I might like it better than IKF if you had a second baseman who could step right in. But if you imagine moving Gonzalez to shortstop if you're unable to get another shortstop, and he just starts developing himself into a good shortstop. Although I don't know that the arm's quite there, it might have the same problem as IKF, but if it is, imagine, in 2026, you get Termar up there and Gonzalez is like, no, I'm good. I got this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That would help a lot, but I don't know. Maybe Peguero takes a step forward. It's hard to tell, but it's there. Also, Ben Sherrington is on vacation. That's good. That's a funny one. Sorry, I didn't react like it was funny, but big assumption is Bart hitting 15 homers. Yeah, I think that's a big assumption. I don't know if he's going to hit 15 homers again. I don't know what we got out of him. What's so funny? It's the internet, Jake. I was actually talking the whole time. No, I don't know if it's going to be that. If it's 12 and you get maybe 8 from Henry, a few from Davis, you might, that when I said that, or Andy, you might be able to accomplish somehow getting, that's why I said, in a good world, you accomplish 20 home runs from the catcher spot. But I don't know how much of that comes from Joey Bart. I don't know if what we saw happens again, dude, we struck gold. And yet what was that, Jake? That was dumpster diving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it worked out. And now everybody's in on Joey Bart hitting fourth and moving to first base. I've heard that so much. And from the same people, don't dumpster dive. And it's like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, I don't know what you're saying here. You've got to take risks. And unfortunately, the only risks they take are giving bad players a job. You got your cake. I understand.
What a coincidence.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to be ridiculed for this for a second, but I still have high hopes for Davis. I still think he's a good player. I think he's going to figure it out. He's too hard of a worker. He's too good of a hitter to fail and just continue to fail.
Henry Davis to me was rushed to the major leagues without question. And I think it's probably going to take him a little bit longer to come back from that. So, yeah, okay, so moving on here. Another player was just signed. Hobie Milner, and I'm going to refresh this again. Goes to the Angels. Yep, goes to the Rangers. Already talking bad, same division. And it looks like we still don't have a figure on this. So the Rangers signing Hobie Milner. Hobie Milner was like a 4+ ERA guy last year in 64 innings, but the year before that, he also threw 64 innings and was a 182. The year before that, he also threw 64 innings and was like a 370. We need left-handed guys, and that's a better option than Wentz.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what the money is, right? But and I'm not saying this is a guy I'm bent out of shape on, but we're starting to see lefties drop off the board now too. So you've got Max Kepler, you've got Milner, you've got there was another lefty pitcher that not too long ago that was signed too, but like you're starting to see a couple of guys drop off the board. Of course, Josh Fleming signed a minor league deal with the Mariners or somebody. I'm kidding. But, you know, lefties are going to drop away too. And this team needs lefties in the bullpen. I don't know that these guys are involved in a Tanner Scott right now. You know, I highly doubt so. He's going to get 12 to 13 million.
Yeah.
At this point. So I don't know.
Yeah. I'm still in the camp. I don't know. I think you can go sign big name bullpen arms, but you can get good seasons out of other guys too.
Yeah, I mean, Baraki's a good example of that.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm not 100% against necessarily quote unquote dumpster diving for bullpen as long as the back end of it's strong.
right. Yeah, it's fair. That's it.
I thought that was a full thought.
Okay. That's
Was
fine.
it not?
No,
Did
I
leave
was,
you
I
hanging?
was letting it breathe a little bit, but that's good. Alex says if you sign Tanner Scott, it is too close not to be a lefty in the pen. Oh, it's saying you're saying it's to close, not to be a lefty in the pen. No, I think Bednar's still your closer until he falls himself out of it. I think they believe Bednar will be back. I believe Bednar will be back. I think Jake believes Bednar will be. Yeah, Jake believes Bednar will be back. To me, I mean, you had one bad year. We have a ton of circumstances as to why it was a bad year. Like, I'm not making excuses, but there are things that could have played. An injury early on, completely lost his spring training. His spring training happened at the major league level, which should never happened. He should have been IL'd. He should have been in minor leagues. And then on top of that, there was pitch tipping. There was not tunneling your fastball with your curveball. There was all this stuff. But the metrics then still actually liked him. It's just the tunneling, the tipping, 2 or 3 different times. Baseball stuff that make you not effective, right? Guys are just laying off the curve waiting for that fastball.
Mm-hmm.
And you're catching up to it in that case. Even when the fastball was harder last year than it was the previous 2 years when he was a stud. I think when a guy's that good, when he's a top 5 closer in the league, you just don't give up on him after 1 year. Now, with that said, closers are like that sometimes. So you do need to have a guy. They need to get a guy that is available like a Connor Scott like a Tanner Scott who's available to say like, hey, Bednar's not getting it done. We got a guy, put him in. But Tanner Scott is a lot like a Chapman in that way. You have a fallback plan that's not Holderman and Brzezinski or Nicholas or anything like that. Let those guys do what they need to do. But that's it. You know, Bucko Mike says Bednar has a short leash. Probably. If he's struggling, he's done by June. He gets booted by June. If you get a guy like Tanner Scott or Jeff Hoffman,
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You get one of those guys, you can believe those guys can step in and do the job. And they need to get a guy like that. If you get a Tanner Scott, 2 birds with 1 stone. You got your lefty and your backup plan. If you get a guy like Jeff Hoffman, you still have to go out and acquire 2 left-handed pitchers, I would imagine, 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So I think that's a big thing. I don't know who Bednar is training with in the offseason. I don't. Although we did hear, if I go back up to Sherrod's question here, we did hear that Jack Swinski was going to be working out with somebody. Who was it he was going to work out with?
I did not hear this.
Oh man,
No.
Who are we saying he was going to work out with? Somebody help me out here. There was somebody that he was. Oh, Max Muncy.
Oh,
Yeah, he was trying to.
Okay.
He was trying to connect with Max Muncy. Sherrod, I don't know what the plan is. My plan for Jack would probably be see what you got in spring training. If he proves himself, then by all means, and you didn't sign somebody, by all means, you have no choice. But my guess is he still has a minor league option. This guy's not a guy that you give up on until next year, because then you're out of options, right? So with a minor league option still on the table, you send him to AAA. You make sure that this guy has an opportunity to get better. 26 home runs is no joke. You don't do that by accident. And I think that they owe us fans and the organization to keep giving him opportunities, just because of the fact that he could be, he could be a big player in this lineup. Imagine him slated into the 6 or 7 spot, hitting 25 home runs to 30 home runs.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and then eventually moving his way up. But if you got a guy like that, man, I would love. Steel City DW says Jack team MVP 2020. I'd love it. He got a lot to prove.
Yeah.
He's got a lot to prove. I'm a big Jack fan. I've said that. So I like the power. I understand the strikeouts are there. Like I said, I wouldn't fill up a lineup of guys like that, but I definitely have one in my lineup.
Yeah.
And I have a belief that Cruz will end up striking out less. If he doesn't, then you already have that guy in the lineup. But if he does, I don't know. You'll see. I mean, there's teams that are really good that have multiple guys like that. So
Yeah.
there's that. 10:20. We got about 10 minutes here. What are your thoughts on pitching injuries? I don't think this is a deep conversation. If we go 5 over, that's fine. We had MLB put out their study results with a conclusion saying, we think we know why pitching injuries are happening. And then basically said what we've all been saying, right? It's because guys are throwing real hard. No, you don't say, right? And I've listened to like 4 or 5 guys talk about this now, and each one of them have said the same thing that I just said, and then says nothing to see here, and then says the only thing I thought was interesting. And the funny thing that I heard was that of the 4 or 5 different people, I heard 3 or 4 different things that those people found interesting. So all of them only found one thing interesting, but they all found something different interesting, which means it's a conversation. So let's start having it.
Yeah.
What was your takeaway initially? Just saying, like, just on a high level, like I said, we're kind of at the end of the show here, but what was your takeaway as we're looking forward to like what's causing it or what's going to fix it, whatever you want to talk about?
Sure. I think it's a good conversation starter. I think they're okay. We got this document now and we got all this data, but we need to go back and say, okay, so I see all this. How do we compute this and to make a correction here? And it's gonna, who was Plesac on MLB Network was like, these guys are getting bigger. He's like, I'm seeing guys built like linebackers throwing the baseball. when you got a few guys them in the major leagues that are the kind of the longer, lanky, skinny dudes who just whip their arm through, and it's not it's good mechanic. Mechanics is key, man. I mean, if you have good mechanics, you have good deceleration, like that kind of stuff is very important for a pitcher's arm health, arm care, the short burst sprints that they like to do now rather than the long distance running that they used to do. All of that stuff plays a part in it. Are we going to are we going to worry more about recovery and taking care of your arm more than let's get it as strong as possible?
Yeah.
That's where it's at for me.
Yeah. It's hard to tell where they end up going from this, because I think that it's got to be an individual effort, an individual basis. Like, you've got to take a look at each person. They've slated the workouts, like, starting pitchers are working out like relief pitchers now, bulking, empty the tank immediately, right? And so it's a pitching strategy to say, like, I want to go 7. I love 100. I'm not going to stop chasing 100. But Justin Verlander did that, and he just didn't throw 100 until he needed it.
Mhm.
Right. And so you end up with like a little more in the tank when you throw that 100, and it blows by a guy. It makes it even more valuable if you can place that fastball. And so that becomes a big problem. If you're saying, well, I don't have control, so I may as well just throw it as hard as I can so I can be effective. Okay. So now you don't have a job, because, I mean, you know what I mean? Just go to the bullpen in that case. But I mean, I'm not, I don't want, it's just an idea of like, it's less about chasing velo for me, which I know that is a lot of what they're talking about. It's like, oh, it's this chase for velo and stuff. It's less about that for me. And it's more about the max effort every single pitch. Like, pace yourself a little bit. Let yourself last. I don't know. I thought there was a lot of interesting things about how this is actually, so Alex brings up Archimedes Caminero, the hardest like meatball I've ever seen, right? He would throw consistently 98, 99, 100, and it just gets smacked in the gap. Most of that was just because it was a straight ball.
Yeah.
Like, it had no movement. It had no, like, it was just, this is it. No control. And so if he tried to hit an edge, he had no shot. So every one of his 101 and 102 was right down the middle. These guys can hit that. These guys can hit that. And if it doesn't have movement and you don't have another pitch to play off of it and to tunnel with it, it's hittable.
Yeah, and you just think about, painting the black with 96, painting the black with 95, coming in with some, good pitches, and then, man, this dude's just fouling everything off. Boom, 101 right down the middle. He doesn't have a chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if it's straight. I mean, it's by him, because he's not waiting for that. He's been timing you up at 96, 97.
Yeah, and if you're throwing your slider there and it's busting outside, they have to wait a second to see if it's going to move. And then at that point, it's already by you. So I think there's a lot of ways, like, the guys can learn how to pitch and still be effective without every single pitch being the hardest pitch. However, boy, it'd be hard to convince somebody of that. And I understand that. So I think it's going to take a lot more. It's going to take a lot more. It's going to be in the training. It's going to be in what we do from a certain level. I mean, scouts right now, they see a kid throwing 95, they're all in. I don't care if he can throw a strike. We'll fix that. And so kids are going to keep throwing 95 if that's what they think is going to get them signed or drafted or whatever. They're going to keep doing it. And so you have to be able to show kids that there's more to it. And I don't know how you do that if the scouts are only looking for velo.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, listen, you go to a scout day, you go to a, throw in front of scouts, whatever. I'm unleashing too. 100%. And they're going to see the velo and they're going to be like, all right, now let's dig more deeper. And maybe they go watch him pitch a game and maybe he is doing that. Maybe he's not emptying the tank on every pitch.
Yeah.
But if I'm pitching in front of that scout, like in like a side session bullpen, I'm letting it eat. And I think every kid will, because they want to get noticed. They want them to know they can hit that number.
Yeah. And like I said, it's all about that for me. You know what I mean? Chasing velo, chasing spin, chasing stuff. Like all that is never going away. That's getting better. Like you're just trying to get better. But I think some of the things that they're throwing away in the minor leagues, like long distance running, building up stamina, allowing yourself to be, and then for me, bulking up. And I'm going to take it one step further, Jake. I've been talking about this for years, long before we started doing a podcast. I started talking about guys, and the one guy that I brought up to you multiple times, and you told me I was crazy. Like I was crazy, but Mike Trout. And I kept saying, this dude's too big. He looks like a football player. He's not going to, I couldn't believe, I said, if he keeps doing this, he's not going to be a good defender because he's not going to be able to move. And then I was proven wrong. And I said, he's not going to be able to sustain this or whatever. And I was proven wrong. Well, then all of a sudden it caught up with him. And you keep bulking up like this, you're going to be injured. And this guy has a problem staying on the field. And I don't know if that's part of it, but all of that, like, I mean, you're going to say this. It was a few years ago, Jake, that we were pumped because we started seeing the guys show up for spring training and we were like, hey, Ke'Bryan Hayes is a dude right now. This dude grew 3 times this winter, right? Look how buff, look how bulked up he is. Shoulders were filled out like he was growing up, but he was also bulking up. The guy hasn't been healthy.
Yeah.
Get out of the weight room. If you've got back problems, just get out of it. Lightweight only. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So back problems in the weight room don't equal each other. And I know people are going to say, well, you don't know anything about it. You're right, I don't. So if there's a way that you can go into the weight room and still be effective with a back problem, it's probably working on your back. It's probably intentional lifting.
Yeah.
And it's not bulking though. These guys don't look like baseball players anymore. And everybody wants to say like, these guys are built different. And I'm like, yeah, but they're not built like ball players.
Right.
You know
They're
what I'm
not
saying?
built for the 162 game season.
No, the only way you're built like that and you're good for a 162 game season every single year is with steroids because that keeps you on the field. Right. And so like, let's go back to being ball players that come in all shapes and sizes. I just showed a video of Bartolo Colon basically just doing this, you know, for those of you on video, just that's his pregame stretch. And the guy pitched for 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a dude who used to hum upper 90s all the time. And what did he do? He learned how to pitch. And then he was effective when he wasn't even throwing 90.
CC Sabathia. Bro, when he retired, he was throwing, what, 91, 92?
I mean, Jamie Moyer played till he was 87 and couldn't even throw 80. And he was still getting people out somehow.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously, there's a little bit of, like, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not by much. We're built different. We could talk about Luis Robert on this show a lot. We could talk a lot about Luis Robert. We just did a whole outfield discussion. Forgot to bring up Luis Robert, which we intended to actually say, like, what if we talk about this? I'm all the way out on him.
Me too.
Because of the injuries. Because the guy's not built to be a baseball player. He's never going to play.
Yeah.
And I just can't, like, we already have Ke'Bryan, who has to prove that he can stay on the field. I don't want another one in the outfield.
Yeah.
I don't want to force Jack Wilson. I don't want to force Jack Sawinski into a spot. I want Jack Sawinski to earn his spot.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just how I'm feeling. But all I'm saying is that I think this goes further than just pitching when you talk about the way that we're lifting and bulking up and, you know what I'm saying, all that stuff. I think there's some truth to it there. And I think this is a good conversation, even though we, at first glance, when you read that, you say, we're learning nothing new. The other thing I thought was interesting was they talked about how we're babying guys in the minors. And then they come to the majors and we tell them, go ahead and pitch a whole workload. That's a whole other discussion about whether or not you want a 6-man rotation this year, or if you just want to take the leash off of Paul Skeens. And then what's your effect there? And when you read stuff like this, how do you feel about that, right? Now we're starting to think about something completely different because we've got guys on our team and we have a strength on this team that is pitching. If that pitching starts getting hurt, we're in trouble, especially with the offense we're putting out there right now that we just talked about on this show. The only way this works is if we have that pitching.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've been saying that for a long time. The baseball players aren't built like that, and you can't build them like that. And I thought I was proven wrong, and it feels like there's a page turning here.
Yeah. I think there's a way you can get away with it with being certain position players. But, flexibility is just way more important than people give it credit for.
And long term, right?
Mm-hmm.
Short bursts. What was the one guy said? Short bursts are fine so long as you've built a foundation of
cardio.
Of the cardio, yeah. So, man, I'm telling you, I think it's really interesting, and I think we're going to find out more, and we're going to talk about more about how things can change. But I don't see it happening anytime soon. It's going to take a process. It's going to take a lot of moving parts. Kids will emulate what they see, period. They will always emulate what they see. Mm-hmm. It starts here. It starts at the major league level, and then it works its way down.
It starts at the
professional level, works its way down. 100%. Hey, I get this thing off tomorrow.
Nice.
I just take it off. Like, I can just take it off tomorrow. It's not like I have to go back. I go back on Christmas Eve. And for the audio listeners, my wrap from hand surgery on my left hand. That's it. Sunday, we're going to try to do something fun, guys.
Yeah. Maybe
we're gonna try to
wear a Christmas sweater or something.
There you go. Wear a Christmas sweater. We'll, dress for the occasion. Maybe I'll throw green and red around the layout here or something, but and we'll ask some festive questions, I'll say. Okay?
Sounds good, man.
We'll have fun with it. Thanks again for everybody. Enjoy your Friday
is Hawaiian shirt
and your Hawaiian shirt.
So,
come back on Sunday night. Let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks.